All right, this is our boy Big Tim here, and he's about to get infected with H1N1. But first, his non-specific immune system is going to try to prevent that from happening. So an H1N1 virus is going to land on his skin, but his skin is going to act as a barrier, and it's not going to let the H1N1 virus in. Another one's going to flow towards his nose and enter through the nasal cavity, but the mucous membrane is going to stop it. But finally, an H1N1 particle comes along, Tim inhales, and the particle is sucked in down his esophagus and into the lungs.
So we have our H1N1 in the lung, so we'll zoom in on a single cell. The H1N1 is going to attach itself to the membrane and then travel in because its proteins on the outside will match the ones that are on the membrane, allowing it in. And once inside, it's going to release its RNA into the nucleus, and that RNA is actually going to outcompete the RNA from the normal cell. And what will happen is, instead of replicating its own proteins, the cell will replicate the virus proteins and create more viruses. And by the time enough viruses are replicated, the cell is just going to burst, and all the viruses will spread out to other cells and do the exact same thing.
All right, Tim also has a cut up on his shoulder over here, and one of the H1N1 viruses is actually going to get inside his skin now that there's an abrasion, and he's going to go inside. So once inside the body, or once past the skin cells, Tim's body is going to release histamine, some cells are, and that's going to vasodilate, and it's going to cause blood to pool there. And as a result, macrophages are going to come in. A lot of macrophages are going to come in, and they're going to kind of war in this area right here with all the H1N1s. They're going to try to break them all. So in the middle, they're going to vasodilate. At the end, they're going to start to constrict a little bit. So we're going to pool all this stuff here. There's going to be a battle between your macrophages, your dendritic cells more specifically, and the H1N1 virus. And what the macrophages are going to do is they're going to engulf the H1N1s, break them up into their constituent parts, and present parts of the antigens on the MHC protein to other cells, which will begin to initiate our specific immune system, which comes next.
All right, so on another note, we have Tim being infected by H1N1 all over the place. And some of these cells, in order to kill them off, the cells will send signals up to the hypothalamus, which is like the control center for the body. And what it'll do is it will tell all the cells, especially like the veins, to dilate and cause the body temperature to rise. And this is generally known as a fever. And once the body temp rises enough, cells will start to die, especially like pathogens in H1N1. And if it gets too high, though, other cells and enzymes and proteins can start to denature as well, and that's where it can get dangerous. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, back to the macrophage, which has the little MHC protein that's presenting the antigen that it derived from the H1N1 that it digested. That antigen is going to try to met up with a helper T cell, just a naive helper T cell, and what will happen is once it fits into the receptor of the helper T, it's going to send out signals called cytokines to have it replicated into memory cells and killer T cells. And what will happen is once it replicates a lot, the memory T cells are going to kind of stay behind in case the virus would ever come back so they can respond. But the killer T cells are going to go out and find other batches of the H1N1 and kill it and try to disperse it throughout.
All right, so what you just saw was the cell-mediated response, and basically what happens is the killer T's can then kill bad or infected cells. So they deal with cells, and in this case with the B cells, it's called our humoral response, and this occurs in the free-flowing blood, not inside of cells. So what's going to happen is a B cell is going to come into contact with an H1N1 that meets its, variable portion, and it's going to take in the H1N1, present the antigen on an MHC, and sometimes this is enough to activate the B cell, but most times it requires a helper T cell to activate the B cell. So once activated, the B cell is going to produce memory cells and plasma B cells. The memory, just like the helper, or just like the T memory cells, will be staged for future attacks by the similar virus. And the plasma B cell is actually going to produce antibodies, which are going to go and find the tags that were found on the H1N1 virus. So they're going to go out, they're going to find the H1N1 virus. They're going to find the H1N1 virus. And a lot of times they're going to latch on, they're going to clump together, and they're going to clump together all these virus proteins, and then a macrophage is going to come through and clean it all up. My Facebook?